Good afternoon, people. Let me just sit down. How are you all? How's everyone doing? How's your lockdown beards coming along? You as well, ladies. Mine, as you can see, is growing sort of quite quickly. Number of colours coming through now, including, alarmingly, a bit of ginger, but I prefer not to call it that. I call it Sunset over Kilimanjaro. My daughters still call me Ginge, though. I've got no ginger hair in my head, but when my beard grows, some very, very nice shades of red, and as you can see, some white or Arctic platinum showing through now as well. So I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're not climbing the walls. Just basically a little quick update, etc. What I've been doing over the last week since the last video. I haven't been playing any games at all, really, because not really had the time. What with working from home and stuff, I've not been finishing until like 7 o'clock in the evenings, and by that time having to clear everything away and then get everything out, etc. It's been, you know, sometimes it's just a bit tiring and you just can't be bothered. Having said that, I am going to do some soon. But what have I been doing with my spare time? What spare time there has been? The usual sort of stuff. I've been going out for my daily sort of exercise, a walk around the block, the estate, local common, 3 or 4 times a week. It's about 4 times a week. Using my Huawei health thing, I've walked about 30 odd kilometres recently, which isn't a lot for some people, but when you're me and idleness is one of your particular traits, then that's actually some quite good going. But what have I done? What's been one of the dangers of being in lockdown is sort of becoming over friendly with Amazon and giving your credit card a bit of a walloping. And what I've started doing was, I've always been a fan of classic comedy, as many of us are, and always wanted various times over the years to sort of like build up a really good collection of all my sort of favourites. And had never really sort of got going with it. Years back when VHS videotapes were the thing, I did have quite a decent collection of the likes of Fawlty Towers, Steptoe, Hancock, what else did I have? It Ain't Half Hot Mum, Dad's Army, etc, etc. But I never really sort of followed that up once things started being released on DVD. But now there's lots and lots of time. I have started to do that and just sort of like sit with my laptop in the evening, or when I can, on the PlayStation, just sit downstairs with a couple of beers and sort of watch some of these things. And I've been buying, and it's another nice sort of hobby that I plan to sort of expand as the sort of weeks go on, etc. Because like I said, I mean, I just love sort of classic comedies. Now, I did start a couple of months ago. Let's actually take a drink of this. So I'll show you what I've been buying in my first sort of attempts, and just some sort of brief background, really. Now, I've never been much of a fan of modern comedies, apart from things like Father Ted, The Inbetweeners, and the IT Crowd. The IT Crowd in particular, I think, is it's a work of genius. It's just so funny. And being, of course, a retro gaming fan, sort of segues nicely into the first sort of series I'm going to sort of talk about. The first sort of box set. I actually bought a couple of box sets a few months back, together with what I've sort of bought recently. The IT Crowd, every week there was sort of like different sort of objects in the background, different computers, etc. And you can select one particular episode and spend just as much time focusing on what sort of bric-a-brac is in the background, what's changed and what's identical to sort of like previous episodes, as you do listening and watching the actual sort of episodes play out. I think that's tremendous fun. The only other show that I've ever sort of done that on, that's ever had that sort of effect, is the first one I'm going to show you here, and it happens to be my all-time favourite comedy series, and I can watch it time and time again. And here's the box set I bought a couple of months ago, Steptoe and Son. Obviously the classic tale of the residents of Oil Drum Lane, Harold and Albert Steptoe, father and son rag and bone men. And the interplay between Harry H Corbett and Wilfred Bramble, the sort of main actors in it, is just fantastic, and it's just watchable. I can just watch it time and time and time again. I've seen every sort of episode on that box set, all those sort of series, multiple times, and it never ever grows old. The same kind of thing as the IT Crowd, because of the state of the front room, which is one of the main sort of sets that you see in the house that they both share. There are some constants like the skeleton, the giant fish head, Harold's cuckoo clock, the bear, the skeleton. Did I say the skeleton already? But each week something else in the background had changed to sort of reflect that it was like a sort of working house, a working household and a storage facility. And it's just fantastic. Both stars are long since passed. Harry H Corbett in 1982 and Wilfred Bramble in 1985. Both wonderful, wonderful, wonderful actors. And I ordered off the internet, off Amazon, sorry, this, which is the sort of biography of Harry H Corbett, called The Front Legs of the Cow, and it's written by his daughter Susanna, and it's really quite interesting to sort of like read how he sort of grew up in quite an impoverished sort of background and sort of made it good to become sort of like one of the nation's best loved entertainers, etc. It's really, really interesting, really, really well written. There were, of course, two Steptoe and Son feature films, Steptoe and Son and Steptoe and Son Ride Again, which I have ordered and have come in next week. They're both very, very, very good. They're not quite up to the standard of the individual episodes, I don't think. But having said that, they're not too bad at all. Something that I did have arrive was a film I'd seen ages ago, starring Harry H Corbett. And by ages ago, I mean about 30 odd years. This is The Bargee, which was written by Galton and Simpson, who also wrote with the scriptwriters for Steptoe and Son. And sort of like it's kind of like a vehicle for Harry H Corbett, I suppose. Stars himself and Ronnie Barker, and there's a whole host of other sort of like famous names from sort of like back in the day. And it really is a nice sort of like gentle sort of comedy film, etc. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's really good, and it's really strange to see him, because he was so synonymous with the role of Harold Steptoe. It's really, really strange to see him playing anything else. But still a really good sort of like gentle film. The other film, box set that I bought, we mentioned Ronnie Barker, so you probably know what's coming. It's Porridge. Again, an absolutely fantastic comedy series that sort of stands the test of time really quite well. That also had a feature film made of it, which was filmed literally just a couple of miles up the road from me at Chelmsford Prison. But again, absolute classic comedy, fantastic. And because I've got that, I'm going to be getting the two Ronnies box set. If there is one, I'm sure there is one, because some of those sketches are absolutely fantastic. It's Four Candles, The Worm That Turned, the Phantom Raspberry Blower of Old London Town has to be the funniest thing that's ever been written. That is just superb. What else did I get? Again, a couple of months back, my sort of a very, very close second to Steptoe and Son for my favourite TV series is In Sickness and in Health. And its predecessors, Till Death Us Do Part, and there was, what was the other one called? There was 3 different series. You know what, I can't remember. I think it was just called Till Death. And I hadn't seen them for ages. If you don't know, the character Alf Garnett is played by Warren Mitchell, is just a complete bigot. And each episode is basically him spouting out his bigotry, etc., and being proved wrong time and time again. But the quality of the writing by Johnny Spate and the acting by Warren Mitchell is just phenomenal. Some of Alf Garnett's rants are just an acting and comedy masterclass. They are spectacular. When I bought this, I bought it in the local HMV, but they didn't have Till Death Us Do Part, so I will have to order that on Amazon, the kind of, not a prequel as such, it's like the first sort of series, because it's brilliant. And if you've never ever checked it out, go on YouTube, etc. Some of Alf's views nowadays, you know, I would think it very, very unusual if you were to get a comedy series with some of the lines and some of the words used, but you know, it's just absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to be sort of expanding that as well, and looking to get other series. The next ones I have in mind, box set wise, are Some Mothers Do Have 'Em and It Ain't Our Fault Mum, because they were really absolutely fantastic. But there's so many to choose from, really. It's just absolutely, you know, just to sort of sit there. And the thing is, no one seems to have any interest in it. Yet, you know, youngsters these days aren't really interested in Steptoe and Son or sort of Faulty Towers. I don't know, perhaps you know youngsters that are different, but like with the sort of retro gaming, they don't really sort of see what the appeal is. My youngster, she loves Big Bang Theory and constantly watches that, and whenever I keep calling her a youngster, she's nearly 18. Whenever I sort of try and suggest to her, sit down, we'll watch this, she'll be like, no. I could put some famous Spike Milligan sketches on YouTube, such as the Fresh Fruit Song or Idiot Scouts, and I could just sit there wetting myself, despite the fact that I've seen them a million times. The absolute comic genius on display there is fantastic, and they sit there stony faced and just like they don't get it. Rising Damp, that's another one I'm going to get, and I mentioned Dad's Army earlier as well. Just a sort of like second collection hobby, really. What else did I get? Now, I mentioned Galton and Simpson, who wrote Steptoe and Son, were part of a collective called Associated London Scripts, involving it was originally set up by Spike Milligan, Eric Sykes and Galton and Simpson, and ended up eventually getting work for, amongst others, Johnny Spate, John Antrobus, several others. And this this company was kind of like a collective that encouraged and supported each other, and if anyone was ever struggling with a particular script idea, they'd all kind of help each other out. It really sort of like fascinating, but set up by Eric Sykes, and we used to watch Eric Sykes an awful lot as a kid. He died in 2012, and some of his comedy is absolutely spectacular. In particular, the one he's most known for, I would think, is the one called The Plank, which was originally released in about 1964, 1967, starring Eric Sykes and Tommy Cooper. But on that particular DVD is the remade version from 1979, which is kind of like a who's who of comedy greats from the time. Everyone sort of seems to be in it, as well as some sort of like guest appearances from the likes of Harry H Corbett, Bernard Cribbins, Lionel Blair, James Hunt, the racing driver, Henry Cooper, the boxer, and the Tommy Cooper partner character is replaced in the 1979 one by Arthur Lowe. So if you have never checked either of those out, do so, because it's so funny, and it kind of like silent as well. So all the comedy is visual. In particular, there's half a dozen stories, sort of like short films on that particular DVD, including his other really famous one, Rhubarb, which again is just absolutely wonderful, and just so much inventiveness and ingenuity in it. It's amazing, really is. And of course, if you're a Harry Potter fan, you'll recognise Eric Sykes from, I think it's A Goblet of Fire, because he's the old man that gets eaten by the snake at the start. He's like the caretaker of the house. That was Eric Sykes. So going on about that Associated London scripts, I got this off Amazon. Spike and Co. By Graham McCann. It's an ex-library book. I have actually had this before, and this is the story behind Associated London scripts, how they all got together, how it all sort of worked, how it was set up. Really, really fascinating read. And I've held off buying Galton and Simpson's story of how they came to create Steptoe and Son, because I've got it somewhere in the house already and I don't know where it is. So I'll try and find that and give that another sort of read over, because that's interesting as well. So, you know, oh, and the Spike Milligan War Diaries is something, because it's payday next week and I've had to be really careful. My missus has sort of said this to me, because you're sort of like on lockdown, you're getting really bored, and it's so easy to just click something on Amazon and go, yeah, there you go, and before you know it, you've spent 50 or 60 quid, as you know, as us collectors of crap do. So it's something I've got to be careful of. So next week, or the next purchase I have my eyes on book-wise, is the Spike Milligan War Diaries. Again, I've had those before, way back in the 90s. And if you've never ever read them, they are the funniest things that have ever been written. Spike Milligan's accounts of joining the army all the way through, and his time all the way through World War II. He's a very troubled individual. Had some major problems occur as a result of his service in World War II. But as much as they're funny, they're also tragic and poignant at the same time. You know, you can equally be sort of like howling with laughter one page and feeling really quite sorry for him the next. Absolutely fantastic. And there's 7 of them in total, so I'll be ordering those next. So yeah, this is totally off the cuff, totally sort of something different. I've not been playing any games lately for the reasons sort of described. But it's a nice sort of hobby to sort of get into. Now, classic comedy is sort of subjective. What is the best comedy is very, very subjective. A lot of people, when you say that, will rattle off the Monty Pythons, the Fawlty Towers, etc. And while I think they were funny, I think a lot of the time they kind of missed, for me, at times, they missed the mark a little bit sometimes. Whilst not doubting at all the sort of genius involved in creating and you know, producing them, but to me they're not my favourites. I can quite happily not watch them, but if they're on, I can watch them. Particularly the Python films. They're more accessible to me than the TV series were. Things like Only Fools and Horses, Blackadder will rightly be very high up in people's lists. But Only Fools and Horses used to love at the time, but I don't think it's aged particularly well. The acting and, you know, the delivery and the sort of chemistry between the characters, it's still top notch. I just think it hasn't aged as well as it should have. And the final sort of few episodes of it kind of, I think they kind of over-egged the pudding with it, if you know what I mean. They weren't as funny. I know there was supposed to be some poignancy in saying goodbye to the Uncle Albert character and finally everything sort of like coming full circle, etc. But they weren't, I didn't think they were particularly necessary episodes. They're good, but they're not up to the standard of sort of previous ones. But, you know, it's all subjective, isn't it? I don't, you know, I don't particularly get on with Red Dwarf. Other people absolutely love it and adore it. It's just never appealed to me. Perhaps I've not given it a chance, I don't know. But this was just a random ramble, just to sort of like, you know, waste a bit of time really, show you what I've been doing. I'd be interested to hear and see what your comedy sort of recommendations are, etc. Whether you agree with anything I've said about any of those at all, whether or not you have any kind of interest in them, what kind of suggestions you might have to sort of like get into some old curio comedy wise. There were some episodes on YouTube a while back. They're not there now. There's only basic clips of the series, like 1 or 2 minute sort of clips. But a couple of years ago, there used to be entire series and episodes of a sitcom that was released in about 1973 called Romany Jones, which starred James Beck, who was, of course, Private Walker in Dad's Army. And he died in sort of 1973, I think. So, of course, they replaced his character with another couple in the following sort of like series. And that was an interesting one. It was one I hadn't ever heard of, and it was okay. If anyone remembers that one, then by all means shout up. But yeah, different from games. I'm sorry if that was what you were expecting, but I haven't been doing any lately. I've not had sort of like much chance. So reading and watching sort of DVDs has been the way to go. I don't know how long this has gone on for. I've just rabbited completely as usual. If you like the video, please let me know. If you wish to subscribe, please do so. But if you do subscribe, as ever, please take the time to join in with the conversation and discussion, because that's what it's all about. Now, please stay safe. Hope those close to you stay safe, and that you're not climbing the walls and braining each other with frying pans. You're not at that stage at the moment. This will end. It'll end eventually. And we'll all get there, and we'll all come out through the other side. It is necessary. The figures that are coming through of the people that are being afflicted by this awful illness are just horrifying. So, you know, let's do what we can to make sure those numbers stay down. So, just to reiterate, stay safe, people. Goodbye.